All right, everybody, what's good? Welcome to Docs Outside the Box, another episode. I don't know what episode this is. What number are we at, Renee?
312.
Yeah, 312. Okay, because I lose track of all the numbers. Um,
We
so
usually don't say the episode numbers, so I don't know why you've asked the
because I'd like to
last.
start doing the episode numbers, but hey, I just don't know the numbers. So it's your job to help me out. So everybody,
Oh,
this is Dr. Nee. I'm joined by,
Dr. Renee. Apparently, it's my job to help him out.
yeah, you got a job here. So everybody, welcome to the show. Remember, this is a fusion of money, medicine, and pop culture. And this episode definitely is going to be a fusion because we are going to, let me do a quick rundown. We are going to talk about President Biden announcing student loan relief. We are going to talk about Tesla and its full self-driving debate and what's going on with YouTube. And we're going to talk quickly about quiet quitting and what that means. So let's jump into
What
it.
that mean? What that mean?
Let's jump into it. So, everyone, first of all, I got to apologize to everyone for a couple of things. One, my voice is still recovering from being sick. And although I'm not sick, I still have this chronic cough. So every now and then you may hear a pause, or you may just hear me coughing, and hopefully Christian and Alfred can edit it out. But that may occur. But I got my water, I got my seltzer water here, so hopefully that helps. And then the other thing is my microphone. I don't know what's going on, but this trusty microphone is not working. So it's not connecting to my laptop. So
Not
we
so
got to,
trusty microphone.
yeah, I've had this microphone for over 7 years. So yeah, I don't know if
Ooh.
it's the cable. I don't know if it's the microphone, but I take it everywhere with me. So it's possible that one of the connections could have gotten loose. But y'all know the show must go
The show must
on.
go on.
So Renee, let's talk about it. Let's do it. So August 24th, President Biden announces student loan relief for most borrowers who need it most. We need a screen, man. It says a three-part plan delivers on President Biden's promise to cancel $10,000 of student debt for low to middle income borrowers. I'm on the website whitehouse.gov. There's a whole bunch of different things talking about the three-part plan. There's a plan to target debt relief. There's a plan to make student loan more manageable. And there's a plan to protect future students and taxpayers by reducing the cost of college and holding schools more accountable when they hike up prices. I don't believe that. But anyway, what we are talking, this is setting.
You don't think that they'll?
No, I think these are all. I think that right now, what we can deal with right now are quick fixes, drops in the bucket. But the systemic changes that need to occur, we ain't never gonna see those things, right?
We're never going to see that. Too much money involved.
So let's talk. So the basics right now, the basics are if you make $125,000 as an individual, if you make up to $125,000 as an individual, or if you are a married couple and you make up to if you make up to $250,000. So if you are single, you can't find a man, you can't find a woman, you can't find an
Or maybe you don't want one, Nee.
right? Or whatever it is, and you are and you make up to $125,000, you can get up to $10,000 taken off your total student loan debt. If you in the past have qualified for a Pell Grant, you can get up to $20,000 of student loan debt. And then if you are married, in a relationship, married, and you make if you make $250,000 and less, same thing, $10,000 towards your student loan debt, or $20,000 if you have qualified for Pell Grant. It's got everybody on social media going crazy. There are folks who are on one side who say this is not enough. We need more student loan debt relief. And then there's people on the other side who are like, yo, this is going to cause quote unquote inflation. You know, if you pay a loan, then if you take out a loan, you should pay it. A whole bunch of different things. The White House is pulling out punches and, going out and sending out tweets talking about people who are against student loans are the same people who took out PPP loans.
I seen you on the PPP.
Which is crazy. So everybody is on two aisles, on two different sides. So what say you, Dr. Renee? What side are you
first
on?
of all,
And what are your thoughts?
let me point out
Oh,
what
real
I
quick,
think no one.
hold on, before we do this real quick, I just want every medical resident who is listening to this show, you need to go to studentaid.gov. Make sure you go to studentaid.gov. The link will be in the show notes, but if you sign up through there, that's where you will find out as soon as this debt relief kind of is online and is ready to go. But everybody listening to this show, that means all you residents would qualify for 10K, possibly even more, off of your student loans. And if you don't think that's going to work, I'm telling you, the compounding effect of just $10,000 on your debt will make a big difference. So, my bad. Didn't mean to cut you off, Renee. So, jump on in on this.
So first of all, let me point out what nobody has pointed out is that this is the gold digger's plan B.
What are you talking about? I don't even know where you're going with this.
Because guess what? If you are a gold digger, right, and you want to go and marry up and have, somebody take care of you, then what you would do is you would hold off, right? So you can get your student loans paid.
I'm not following you.
You don't like my joke? Whatever.
I'm not following you. What do you mean? Well, anyway.
You're not following me.
If it needs that explanation, it's not that funny. Moving on. It's a Game of Thrones joke.
No, if it needs an explanation, it's because you're not smart enough to get it. Like me.
Move on.
Okay.
What are your thoughts?
No, my thoughts. So my thoughts are that
gold diggers plan. Get out of here with this corny ass jokes. Move on.
Anyway, my thoughts are that I think this is something that will help people, especially the low to middle income people who are struggling to pay their student loans down, who are struggling to build wealth, who are struggling, with kind of almost everyday expenses. I think this is going to be helpful to them. I'm not necessarily of the faction that, oh, it's not fair and whatever. I'm like, I get it that, everyone's like, well, just because I'm not low to middle income doesn't mean that I don't need a break. I get that. But I'm not going to get into, whether it's fair or not. It just kind of is, right? It just is what it is. Whatever happened, they did their own math and they figured out that these were the people who needed it most, so right? And that's kind of...
You're saying it's better to start somewhere.
Right. It's better to start somewhere than to be nowhere. And there's a very good chance that if they had tried to pass it for everybody, that it would not have passed at all. So, I think it's going to be really helpful to people. Now, as far as people who are, so somebody on Twitter, I think I saw this on the Investing Tutors Hans, IG
Dr.
reel.
Hans.
Yeah, Dr. Hans. I saw his IG reel where he put up a someone's tweet, and I guess they were kind of using sarcasm to basically be like, all the haters who are like, oh, it's not fair, that all those people should give back their child tax credits because they should have known how much children cost before they had children, and therefore, that kind of thing. So she was just kind of showing, for her, what she said anyway, how stupid of an argument that is, that, you go into student loan debt and you didn't, you get it, I guess, relieved in some way. And some people are hating on that. Well, those same people that are hating are the same people who got the PPP credits, and they should have known how much children cost. Not the PPP, the child tax credits, and they should have known how much that was going to cost.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, there is no application for the child tax credit. Like, you either qualified for it or you didn't qualify for it, and then all of a sudden you started getting a check in the mail, right? Like, I think what this boils down to is a discussion about who do we feel deserves relief and who doesn't. That's basically what this comes down to. For me, I agree with you. I don't think this is going to be perfect. I would have liked more relief for people, particularly people who are, graduates of professional school, because of the debt to income ratio. And but I think we got to start somewhere. And, I think for the medical students who are listening right now, this is great, right? Like, this is something, right? It is something that will definitely help to prevent some of that inflationary exponential compounding of your interest rates that occur while you are a resident. So if you can get $10K directly off right there, just because no resident is making anywhere near $100K, right?
Right.
So hopefully they're not, but there are some maybe who may be doing on the side moonlighting, but those who are just residents,
that's few and far between. Yeah.
Right. That's you're right. So for you guys should be first in line trying to get this stuff taken care of. Even law graduates, who are in this situation where maybe they're not making 125 yet, get this. If you are a nurse, if you are whatever it may be, and you are close to not getting to 125, then go ahead and get this. I think it works. I think it helps. I think what I'm hearing, the sentiment that I'm hearing is that, listen, like, only certain people deserve any type of relief. And that certain people depends on who you're listening to on Twitter and who's it coming from. So I don't know. I don't know the perfect answer to this. But I'm for it for right now. I think the big issue right now, the other thing too, which is the big issue is that the price of colleges have just skyrocketed, right? And they're skyrocketed also at the same time knowing that student loan servicers or people who own these student loan companies, like, it's automatically, that you're going to be able to get a loan once the tuition increases. And that's a problem. So there's no check on the colleges to be like, yeah, like if we increase our tuition 1 year from 50,000 to 59,000, well, what's the worst that's going to happen? Our students are more in debt, but we still get that guaranteed check from from Sally Mae or from anybody else. So that's a problem.
That's what I was going to, come back on, to be like, it's one thing to relieve student loan debt, but it's another thing to keep creating debt, right? And so it's like, well, how much, in terms of relief in comparison to how much debt that is going to eventually accrue over the years, like, eventually, how is that going to pan out in the end? Are we going to keep doing this, or is this a temporary fix? Right. And so, as far as I get it, again, people are like, oh, well, it's not fair and this, that, and the other, and I deserve it too. I don't even think it's about who deserves what. I think people, they did a calculation and this is where you fell in, right? Like, that's where the numbers fell.
Yeah, my thoughts are this is a symptom of a major issue that there's a big, large disparity between people who have and people who don't have. And if you want to take it from college and even from medical school, basically what you're saying is you need a lot of money to go to college. And if you don't have that money, then going to a 4-year college degree and possibly, getting a certain type of career is out of reach. Now, I know some people will say, well, you could just do a 2-year and then go into a 4-year college, but it doesn't matter. Like, you get that 2-year degree.
It's still a lot of debt.
You still get a 2-year degree, you get your 2-year degree, and then you go to a 4-year college. Like, you're still going to have to take out loans to get those last 2 years.
It's lower, but it's not, it's not low. It's just lower.
So the cost of getting into certain professions may be too much for people, right? Like, people who don't want to deal with going to medical school, it's a problem, right? It already shows to be a problem, right? There's certain demographics. Like, if you are African American, if you are Native American, if you are of Hispanic descent, you're more likely going to pay for college. You have a higher likelihood of paying for a significant portion of your schooling through student loan debt, right? And as school goes up in value, remember, those salaries that we talked about in the previous episodes are staying stagnant. So as school goes up, the loans go up, right? So people are graduating now with an average of 240, almost 250 of medical school and college student debt. So then if you keep bringing that and raising that up, that means probably about 4 or 5 years, the average is probably going to be 300,000, right? 320, 350.
I mean, because right now we're at what, 220, 225? 240. Okay.
Yeah, we're at 240 right now.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't know what the what is it, the MGMA numbers are.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be very interesting to see if someone did.
I mean, we have a Medscape study though, right? We have that Medscape study that shows.
Let's see what that, I mean, because that's what I'm saying is that are the MGMA numbers, right? And for those of you who don't know what that is, that's kind of the numbers that a lot of hospitals and institutions will use to kind of say, okay, well, this is how much, right? This is how much, your specialty should get for, whatever it is that they're doing. It'd be really interesting to know, like, what are those numbers, right? So if 10 years ago, student loan debt was at a certain average, has the MGMA have those MGMA numbers gone up at the same rate?
Yeah,
Because if they haven't,
the studies have shown
that's
it hasn't.
employment.
There's a survey that shows that it hasn't gone up. So,
Well, I'm not shocked, but because I don't have the numbers in front of me, I can't say that they haven't. But
well,
you're
let
looking
me
at it.
well let me ask you: do you think that there are loans that are more forgivable or elicit more sympathy than others?
More loans? You like? What do you mean?
Do you think that there are certain types of loans that should elicit more sympathy than others? Right. So, for example, if you took out loans to become a nurse, is that more of a quote unquote sympathetic reason to get that forgiven more so than
No,
someone decides to get a loan to go to
business
um,
school or something, or
business school or get a loan
no,
to go to like mechanical, like to
I
become like
don't.
a mechanic and stuff?
No, I don't. Actually, I'll tell you what I do think, though. I think that, and I don't think I'm the first person to have this thought, is that there should be a consideration for what you're going to school for, right? Because the amount of money that it takes to go to college and major, and be some sort of biology or chemistry major is the same, is the same tuition as, if you were going to major in, I don't know, what is it?
Basket
Polka
weaving.
dancing,
Yeah.
right? Basket weaving, right? Like
Yeah,
for
it
me,
costs the
I'm just
same
kind of
amount. It
like,
costs the same amount to get a theater degree as it costs to get a
right,
journalism
exactly.
degree or a
Right.
biology
If you're
degree.
going, yeah, if you're going to an Ivy League school, it doesn't matter what your major is. You are going to pay the same tuition as the person who has, the person who has a major that isn't as rigorous. We'll just say that. And the person who has one that is extremely rigorous, right? They're going to have the same tuition no matter what. And my question is, okay, but these industries are not the same. So if we're talking about true investment, right? Investment should involve some sort of calculated risk. Okay. And so colleges that offer majors that clearly have over the years not proven to make, on average over a certain salary shouldn't be offering, shouldn't be asking students to pay tuition in that amount that is going to essentially negate the investment. So no, I'm not going to go to an Ivy League school and pay $50,000 a year, to go into, library sciences. Like how much money am I going to make as a librarian that $50,000 a year should be able to cover this?
Well,
I just think it's ridiculous.
Probably shouldn't go to Ivy League school to major in that, but
well, but you know what I mean, though. Like, fine, you can go to an Ivy League school to do it, but my question is, why is the Ivy League school charging you $50,000 a year? I'm saying that as it stands right now, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, I agree with you there, but it's not even just Ivy League schools. If you look at public institutions, they're going up in price also, right? So we're talking about the Penn States, we're talking about the Rutgers, we're talking about your, normal in-state college tuition is going up. And what we're finding out is the majority of the difference in the pricing has nothing to do with the education, right? Because like the body hasn't changed, right? We haven't developed like freaking, bionics and stuff. So now you got to like understand anatomy in a different sense. That's all the same. But what they're doing is they're raising tuition and they're differentiating themselves based off of the amenities that are on campus, like the ability to get food.
We got a
like,
sports center. We've got
at 2 a.m. or any
great
of these type of
cafeteria.
things, right? So that's an issue. I think that's a major issue. Well, here's my next question. Do you think that making six figures means that you don't need help with loans?
No, I don't necessarily believe that either. Right. But that goes back to what I was saying about, I'm not going to get into whether it's fair or not. I think they made a calculation and some people fell into it and some people didn't. I absolutely believe that if we're talking about fairness, I would say, across the board, everybody deserves a break because everybody, I feel that most people work hard and, do what they need.
Everybody gets a break in some form or fashion. Everybody gets a
everybody
break.
gets their breaks in a certain form or fashion.
If you make a certain income, there's certain taxes that you can write off. If you make lower than that income, you may not be, open to get those type of things. You may be able to get a PPP loan if you make a certain amount. You may get a child
Right.
tax credit if you make a certain amount. So like in
Right.
every facet of life, there's like all of these different checks and balances to make sure that,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you may get some type of advantage than somebody who's not in your tax bracket. And that's
But
why that's why I started off
right.
by saying, okay, it may not seem fair, but in some form or fashion, like whether you are really rich and you're able to make some moves with your taxes and you're able to pay less in taxes because you're able to make some changes and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
or you are middle class and you're able to get a child tax credit, or you're really young, or you're really closer to the, to the poverty level and you're able to get, maybe some type of Medicaid, Medicare, or
Mm-hmm.
even Pell Grants in some form or fashion.
Right.
There's something there. I'm not saying that it's equitable, but in some form or fashion, there's something
Well,
in for
but that's what I
everybody.
was going to say, right? Is that, again, I think everybody needs some sort of a break. So I'm not going to say, whether or not it's necessarily fair specific to student loan debt. Student loan debt relief. And that you hit upon my point exactly, is that, when these calculations are made, they make these calculations and some people get it and some people don't. So some people are going to have subsidized housing. Some people are not. Some people are going to have certain tax breaks and some people are not. But when the calculations are made, that's just kind of how the chips fall,
Yeah, and these things have
So
consequences. All of these
say
things
again.
have all of these things have consequences. The reason why I mentioned that I'm asking all of these questions is the next question I have is, are these loans predatory? And let me chime in, right? Let me take the kind of host privilege. I think yes, they are predatory. I think that you've created a situation where the only way that you can pay for this is by getting a loan. And then the loans are at these exorbitant interest rates. Do the interest rates have to be that high? Does the
Mhm.
school have to increase their tuition or have to have such an exorbitant tuition on a yearly basis? And as a result, particularly in medicine, like you have, like, for me, like we always say, I think the greatest priority of any country is what? Defense and healthcare, right? Defense and healthcare, right? If you can't defend the citizens, then what is the point of a country and a civilization? And if you can't, make sure that everyone has equal access to health, then, what good is your population? So you have a significant portion of your physicians, of your healthcare workers who are straddled with debt that is probably in multitudes, of what their salary is. That's a problem because that determines where they're going to practice, what they're going to practice, how long they're going to
Mhm.
practice, right? This has major effects on rural neighborhoods, critical
Yep.
access hospitals, underserved neighborhoods, certain specialties, like where I work, like there's no pediatric surgeon. So if your
Mhm.
child comes in and needs, an appendectomy and they're too young, they're going to be shipped 2 hours away. You know
Right.
why? Because there's no pediatric surgeon in the middle of certain
Nowhere.
areas, right? Nowhere,
Right.
basically, right? Or if you have some type of neurosurgical issue, or maybe even a general surgical issue, depending on where you live, you may have to be flown to other states. I remember that
Mhm.
there's insurance in certain rural neighborhoods. There's actually helicopter air ambulance insurance because
Mhm.
they know on average there's a high likelihood that if you have some type of healthcare issue,
You're going to be shipped out.
the local hospital may not be able to handle your complex issue and may have to send you out. That's crazy, right?
Yeah. And
That's
that's very
because
shocking to
that's
people.
that's
But
because there's a
believe it or
shortage.
not, it happens.
It
Yeah.
happens. There's a
All the
shortage,
time.
right?
Yeah.
So I do think that even if you make six figures, I think that there is a strong possibility that you may need help with these loans because,
Mhm.
if you have the price of something that is so unchecked, and then you have people who, are reliant, or excuse me, you have a profession that is basically in charge of making sure the health of an entire, society, they're struggling. That's almost like a house of cards, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
that's where I think that
Absolutely.
you have to be able to provide some type of assistance,
Kind
whether
of like the
it's
caregiver syndrome, right?
yeah,
So you don't take care of the caregiver. How can the caregiver take care of, the sick?
yeah. And I
But
but I
I'm
think
gonna
but I think
I'm
but I
actually
think the
gonna
thought process.
challenge your
But
thought.
hold on, but I think the ultimate issue, I agree with what you're saying. I think the ultimate issue is, well, you make six figures or you make multiples of six figures, you're gonna be all right, which is true. You're gonna be all right, but you got to think about the decisions that these
Right.
professionals are making in the meantime. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, but I'm going to challenge the question of whether or not the loans are predatory, right? Because that, that makes the assumption that, it's the loan industry in particular, right? The banking industry, the lending industry in particular, that is kind of solely responsible. And I'm gonna say, I don't know that it's just them. I think we have to start looking at the university systems as kind of the snakehead, right? Because there will be no loan for $50,000 a year if tuition doesn't cost $50,000 a year. If it doesn't cost $50,000 a year, I'm not going to get a loan for $50,000. Like that's just what it is. And so, I understand that, interest rates and all those things, we know that interest rates come from a number of factors, right? Not just, oh, well, I'm just going to choose an interest rate and you're going to pay this. It comes from a number of factors, including the government, including, so many other factors. But I think the snakehead here is, the university, right? The boards and, the way that university systems work, the competition amongst universities. I think there's something to be said for that. Like there's a whole, system here at work that essentially promotes higher tuition. It's almost like the higher your tuition, the more you pay for school, the more valuable your education is perceived to be.
Well, I agree with everything you're saying. I don't think you're challenging what I'm saying. I think what you're just saying is like there's level A and then there's level B, C, and D. Right. So level A is, like I said, like I like to have discussions about things that are practical, and sometimes I'll throw in some things that are like a little bit like is this likely to happen? But like an actual change to the systemic issues of like student loans and all stuff, that ain't happening anytime soon. So that's why I'm just like, I get what you're saying. And I think what you're saying is valid. The question is it going to occur, right? Like you literally would have to change so many different laws. Like you would have to change bankruptcy laws, right? To make sure that people can cause bankrupt or can file for bankruptcy if they have student loans. You'd have to be able to stop, all of these grants that go to colleges and all of these different type of funding that go to colleges. And like if a college builds something and they're going to get a grant to build something and then they're going to charge for it, it's like, well, you can't charge students for like a cafeteria when it's not really adding anything to it, right? So I agree with you there. If you can get to that root of this issue, then I think that'll really help. I think the big issue is, I think right now from a systemic issue, I think basically we just got to shift more funding to state schools, right? Shift more funding to state schools so we can drive down the tuition of state school. I think also there needs to be a cap on how much student loans people can take, like more of a cap of how much student loans can, how much student loans, how much money students can take out for loans, and the interest rates, like a significant decrease in the cap. And I think that this would force schools to be like, well, if we increase tuition, how the hell are they going to pay for it? And they have to really think about it.
Yeah, but I think then you run into the problem of, okay, well, if a certain demographic can't pay, it's too bad. So you run into the problems that we had, 50 years ago.
Yeah,
right?
I agree
with you. But demographic campaign.
Schools were struggling back then too. Like we're talking about schools were struggling like in the 70s and 80s, and even before that, because they had like these issues of they didn't have enough money, right? And when student loans came out, it became like this amazing thing where now it's like you're broadening the amount of people who can come in and pay tuition, and that's when the university system and the college system just expanded so big, right? So I agree with what you're saying. Yeah, it's going to end up becoming a situation where, there's certain schools that are only open to people who can afford it.
Exactly. You can't afford it, you can't come here.
I actually think that would be few and far between, right? Because I still think that the likelihood of a school saying that, hey, we'll take less to educate the few, even though we can't pay for, operating expenses, I don't think they'll do that. I think that'll force private schools to decrease their costs. But
well, I mean, I think we need to be really careful with that, because, the landscape has changed a lot, with technology. Things have actually changed. Technology, for the most part, is driving a lot of those costs down.
Okay.
And so, if schools are able to say, listen, our operating budget isn't actually, what it used to be, you might find that there are quite a number of schools who are okay, with lower tuition, or caps on student loan debt.
Okay, well, let me ask you
So
this question then. So, if you feel like there's certain degrees that shouldn't be offered in
I didn't say they
college,
shouldn't be offered. I said that their tuition should be
should be lower.
match on, it should be lower, right? Or higher, depending.
So, how
But
much should pre-med? So, how much should a pre-med tuition be then?
I don't know. I can't say what those numbers are, right? Like I can't be like, oh well, you should charge a pre-med $10,000. I don't know, right? Like I would have to see what the average is, right? Listen, everybody is doing math. The only people who ain't doing math are people going through the system, but the people running the system are doing all kinds of math. This is the problem with student loan debt. This is the problem with, the housing industry, right? Or real estate. This is like, we see this in so many different industries that everybody is doing math except for the people who are the consumers, right? We just see what we want. I want to go to that school. I want to be that profession. I want. So basically, you're like a kid in a candy store, and people are like, all right, you want this lollipop? It'll cost you $5. It's like for a damn lollipop. But if you want it that badly, you just might pay for it. And
Yeah.
so this is the thing. We need to start doing more math on the consumer side so that we're not taken advantage of by people who are running the system.
Yeah. I think we kind of beat this dead horse. So, real quick, let me tell you that I got a chance yesterday to speak to the Ghana Physicians and Surgeons Foundation, had a talk with them. And I was primarily talking with med students. There were also residents there, and there were some attendings there, some cardiologists and so forth. And I was talking about our non-traditional way of living, why we do locums, why we paid off student loan debt, why we started a podcast. Like, why do we do all of these different things that are so different than, what the normal average healthcare professional doctor would be doing? And it was really interesting, the type of questions that I was getting. There was questions people asking about, well, if you form a company, should you do an S Corp or an LLC? Or C Corp? Why did you do locums as soon as you finished fellowship? There was a lot of questions that I think we should make another episode about. But it was really cool. It was really fun because I think when you get questions from med students and residents, and the questions are, just as simple as, my attending says that locums, or, me wanting to like kind of just say that I want to put myself in the center of my career decisions. There's a fly in here. Center of my career decisions, really is a selfish way of looking at wanting to practice medicine. Like that was an actual question. You're just like, oh, snap, So I was letting them know that, like, I was that person who was just like, well, I have to live my life like conforming to this tradition A or tradition B.
We were at one point.
Right.
Yeah.
And that we just decided to unplug from the system, and we decided to embrace locums because it's the most amenable for what we want to do, which is we just want to kind of live our life. We want to be able to kind of center each other and our kids and just work hard as physicians, but also at the same time realize that, like, medicine in the United States is like this huge complex. It's like, I think of like what's that show, The Simpsons. It's like working at that nuclear facility, right? And there's only so much change. I was telling them, like, there's only so much change that I think that I can make in the current healthcare system in the United States. But if I go to Ghana and work there, where maybe I'm a doctor out of maybe 50,000 population, or whatever exorbitant number it may be, the likelihood of me making a significant lasting change is much higher there than higher here in the United States. So that's why we choose to kind of do things differently. But I was really clear to let them know that, like, locums is not for everybody. Locums is not the panacea. Locums
it's really not. Yeah.
It's not. Locums is not for everybody, and it's something that we need to consider. And we've considered that. So, I said you can find a job where you are working as a locums or independent contractor, or you can find a job working in a practice or at a hospital employed, but you got to be really intentional about that. And
exactly.
So the reason I'm bringing this up is because we're partnering up with St. John Associates, right? And this show, we really like to partner with companies that empower doctors, right? That is huge. So if you want to be like, don't be like me when I was looking for a job, which is I went to just job boards, and I was just looking at job boards and talking to the hospital, and I did it all by myself. And I wasn't really clear as to where I wanted to practice. I wasn't clear how much I wanted to get paid. I wasn't clear as to submitting a cover letter. I wasn't clear about any of those things. But, St. John, they work with you, residents, attendings, to find a job that fits, who you are, and so forth. And I know I keep joking in the past about orthopedic surgery and so forth, but they do a lot of different specialties also. So they do anesthesia, a lot of different specialties, cardiology, all these different things. So
all the potassium replacement specialties.
Yeah. So I think it's important, to have this discussion about just locums or just, working at some place. But it's just, I think the key thing is just be intentional, folks. You know what I'm saying? Be intentional about your career,
Yeah, because that I see what you're saying. Because St. John Associates actually does only permanent positions, right? And so we were kind of talking about, locums not being for everyone. But, one thing that I love about working with recruiters, and you can do this with your St. John Associates recruiter, is use them as a sounding board. Use them as, the person that you're going to be comfortable saying what you want, right? You may not feel as comfortable saying what you want to a chair of a department who's recruiting you, or to, hospital administrator, but a recruiter who's supposed to act, as an advocate on your behalf, you can just put it all out there, right? Because this person is supposed to be acting on your behalf. So just put it all out there, and then they can have the discussions, maybe the hard discussions that you're not necessarily able to do. And I think that that's really important, especially after what you said, that locums is not for everyone, but you got to be intentional. If you sit down and think about what you want, then you'll be able to make a plan that works for you, that works for your family, and that works for your career long term. So, and I say that because that was actually my experience. When I first worked with a recruiter, I wrote down everything that I wanted, and I sent her, I just sent her the list. Yeah. And I was like, I'm not going to be afraid to write down what I want. And I sent her the list. So, if you're interested in working with St. John Associates, go to stjobs.com/docs, DOCS. So
let's pivot a little bit, because I think we don't have much time, but let's jump into this Tesla full self-driving debate. So basically, guys, Tesla full self-driving debate escalates with legal threats and banned videos. So for you guys that don't know, Tesla has something that's called full self-driving. So that is, you buy a Tesla, and if you opt in for full self-driving, that is, you're in your driveway or your whatever parking, and you type in, I want to go to, such and such supermarket. The car will back up and drive you everywhere on a regular street, on a highway, what have you, and take you to where you want to be. That is, at this moment when this show comes out, it'll be about $15,000 to do that. But it's in beta phase, and we're not sure if it's fully baked yet. But the fact that it says beta should let us know that it's not fully baked. I don't know about you guys. I've checked out the YouTube channels. I'm not sure if I'm ready to fork out $15,000 for something that, when I look at the YouTube videos, I'm like, I don't know. So if you look at the videos, like sometimes they'll make, left turns from like the right lane, as opposed to getting into the left lane and then making a left turn into the next street or into the the oncoming traffic pattern. So it still has a lot of work to go, and I think a lot of people, even people who are Tesla, who worship Tesla, they would say it's not fully baked. Well, what's going on is there's some videos out there where people are showing that when they test out the full self-driving video, the car is actually running over like mannequins that look like children.
Oh God.
Yeah. So that's where this issue is coming from.
Oh gosh. What?
So, but there are also counter videos where people are showing the car driving and they'll put their kids in front of it, right? And the car will stop.
Not real kids.
Nope, they put their kids in front of it, and the car will stop and kind of change direction. Yeah, so that's the whole point of this whole discussion. So YouTube is forcing people to they're taking down these videos that show people testing full self-driving with their kids in front of it. And then YouTube is suing to get these videos that show that the mannequin is there that look like children. They're suing to get those taken down. So this is an issue, right? Because you're selling.
I don't even understand what the hell's going on in people's heads.
Yeah, so you're selling something. The key thing is Tesla is allowing people to use a software that is listed as beta, but they're using it for, like, if you use a beta version of like Mac OS or a beta version of Windows, whatever it may be, like, that's not going to hurt anybody, right? You may possibly lose your files or something like that, but it just hurts you. But if you put this software, half-baked software, in a car, whose fault is it? Particularly if the car manufacturer tells you that this is beta, it's not fully baked, and then that software or that car hits someone, right? That's the whole issue behind all of this. Tesla is selling something, allowing people to use a software that is not fully baked.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think that both have some culpability, because beta meaning what? Right? It doesn't work. Well, what exactly doesn't work? And herein lies the problem, right? Well, you said it wasn't working that great, but I didn't know that didn't work.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Versus, yeah, but I told you it didn't work, so you should assume that nothing worked. Right? So that becomes, I don't even know why people would put their children in front of it. Like, to me, that is just the stupidest thing. Like, anybody who has that video up, honestly, should have their children taken away. Like, that to me is just absolutely ridiculous. Please tell me that is not true, that they don't actually have children in front of it, that they have mannequins. Please tell me that that's not true.
Some fans built or bought mannequins and child-sized dummies to use in their own tests. Others asked their kids to stand in front of a Tesla to prove the cars are safe near children. Some of the videos have drawn scrutiny from YouTube and Tesla. YouTube has taken down several test videos involving actual children,
no, I'm sorry,
citing safety risks. Now Tesla wants the video that started it all taken too. So we're going to put this in the show notes. The reason we bring this up is, y'all, oh boy, we got a Tesla, yo. We bought a model Tesla Y. I'm super psyched about it. And despite all the things that are going on, I mean, there's a lot of controversy.
We do not put our kids in front of our Tesla, by the way.
No. I got so we got a Tesla, but not for personal use. We got a Tesla for business use. And,
yeah, we'll have to do another episode on that.
Yeah, we'll do another episode.
Actually,
on
you
that.
do have an upcoming episode.
Yeah, we do.
Kind of sort of on that. Yeah.
It's going to be a review on my thoughts. You know, so far it's about 3 weeks with the Model Y, and I've driven close to about 2,000 miles on it, because where I work is about 4.5 hours away. So it's a big change to the workflow. But so far, I really like the car. It's a great car. It's a great experience. But there's some issues with the company. There's some issues with what's going on with this software. I don't have full self-driving mode. I just have basic autopilot. But we're going to get into that into another episode. But that's just something in terms of pop culture that we need to talk about, because obviously as a trauma surgeon also, you know, this is going to affect what's going to be coming into my ED and so forth.
Jeez.
So
got hit by a Tesla. Who was driving? Nobody. What?
Yeah. So it's going to be very interesting how all of this stuff plays out. All right. So I think we kind of talked about this Tesla issue. Stay tuned for another episode where we talk about my quick review of Tesla and even some of the basic autopilot features. It's dope, but I don't know if it's really worth it for full self-driving. But look, let's pivot real quick for our last topic, where we're going to talk about this concept that's taken over TikTok. A lot of different digital sources are talking about this, but really TikTok has been really, taking this and making it exponentially grow on their algorithm. So there's a concept called quiet quitting, which has absolutely nothing to do with being quiet. It has absolutely nothing to do with quitting. But basically, it is people who I think basically are setting boundaries on their jobs, basically. Right? That's what it is. Right?
You ain't going to make me do that. You ain't going to make me do that.
Yeah. It's basically People saying, okay, if you want to quiet quit, then, like I'm not checking emails after 5 p.m. And if it's on the weekend and my boss sends me an email, I'm just not responding. Or it's, taking time to be a little bit more healthier during, your office hours, or it's just changing your approach to work. But it's just been, exploding on TikTok because people think that it has something to do with quitting. People think it has something to do with the great resignation. It really doesn't. It just has something to do with putting boundaries on how you work and making sure that you are, a little bit more healthy. Some workers are using it to negotiate for better work conditions because they feel that, with people who left the job market due to COVID and haven't come back, that they have some leverage now that they want to come back. So
you think doctors are quiet quitting?
I think the whole concept of practicing as a locums, I think the way how we practice as a locums, in essence, that's quiet quitting, right?
Right.
We have put very strict boundaries on what we will do and what we won't do. So for me, I really frown upon doing 24-hour shifts. I won't do 24-hour shifts anymore. I'm done with that.
Look at you. Look at you.
Yeah, man. Look at that. You're all proud of me, right?
Look at you.
Talking
you have
become,
what is it? The students has become the teacher. All right now, Grasshopper.
Yeah, I don't want to do 24-hour shifts anymore because I think that there are certain decisions that I think people make that that mathematics, the calculus of how you make decisions at 20 hours is way different than when you make those mathematics at hour 5, hour 7, and so forth. So I just don't want to deal with that anymore. And I just kind of felt like, like if you can use that meme, you see they show that meme of like all the mathematic equations, and it's in front of you. Like that was me when I was talking about.
Thinking like,
should I call my partner in? No, it's not even that. It's like, should I call my partner in, right, at hour 20, even though I know that he's gonna or she's gonna end up doing a 24-hour shift 4 hours later. Should I delay surgery until maybe 4 hours later on, or can I delay it for 24 hours until I come back fully rested? These are the type of calculations that I don't want to deal with anymore. So I work my 12 hours, I work hard. And when it gets to hour 11 and hour 12, if something needs to be done, then I can do it. I'm still fresh. Or I can just sign that out to someone who comes in at night or during the daytime and so forth. So that's just my thoughts.
But are doctors quiet quitting? You're like your average doctor who is employed in a practice. Like, no. Are they quiet quitting? You think? No? No, I don't think they're quiet quitting either.
No. But I think there's certain specialties that are more prone to people quiet quitting. I think definitely ER. I think definitely hospitalists. Definitely, it's like, But I think there's certain I think the boutique specialties, they've been quiet quitting for a minute, right? Like they've already had like dermatologists, right? Like they've been quiet quitting for like since the conception, right? Like they have this option of they are here, they do their office hours, and then that's it, right? They ain't not even dermatologists in the damn hospital,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think even, like you said, it depends on the specialty. It depends on the practice structure, right? Like how are you, and not the practice structure, meaning like how is, like your regular practice, but like what way you decide to practice. So boutique medicine or concierge or people who are doing the, the DPM styles, right? The direct primary care, practices. Like, I think doctors are starting to quiet quit. Although I hate that term, quiet quitting. When I read what it was about, I was like, y'all not quitting though. Like this is.
Yeah, it's not a very descriptive term.
Right. It's actually kind of deceptive. Right. And for me, I would think quiet quitting actually sounds more like it was a term made up by people who don't like the behavior than people who are like, no, I'm doing this behavior, right? Because quiet quitting.
When I hear quiet quitting, I think
quiet quitting. You gonna let me talk? Quiet quitting. Quiet quitting sounds like you quitting on the DL, right? Like you about to leave, but you're not really telling anybody.
Or you trying to get fired.
Like that's what it sounds like. Sounds like you're being sneaky.
Yeah, or you're trying to get fired or something like that. Like you're doing doing a little bit of work so that eventually you get fired, or it basically you have quit already. And I don't think that is the proper
Yeah.
description to describe this. So
Right. And, for me, it just makes me wonder why, why the term quiet quitting is used instead of just going, no, I'm setting work boundaries. Like, is that even more inflammatory than quiet quitting? You know what I mean? If someone said, no, I'm setting work boundaries,
yeah,
is that
I don't know about that, but
is
I
that a
do.
worse term, or is that a more uncomfortable term for people to say?
I don't know. I just think it's a new. This is we're in a new age, right? And I
Or
think
people just like the buzzword?
people are just finding out what works for them and what doesn't work for them. They're finding out that they have newfound leverage, and they're willing to flex it, right? Leverage is
Mm-hmm.
only when you know that you have a certain amount of power, I guess, so to speak. And I think
Yeah.
people are starting to realize, okay, well, whatever term I use, I just want to make sure that whatever environment that I'm walking into, I want to make sure that it's healthy for me. And I think that you know COVID, or sometimes natural disasters or something really major oftentimes causes people or the entire system to be shaken up, so
Right.
that when we come back there's a new reset, like there's a new temperature gain, there's a new homeostasis. And I think right
Yeah.
now we're at a point where we're at a new homeostasis for a lot of tech workers, a lot of people who are office based in how they work, and people who've spent a significant amount of time at home and now they have to go back to the office. There's certain things that they want to do and what they don't want to do, right? Like we were on a plane and we are talking with Yvette, family friend or family member who, she said that a lot of flight attendants and other people in the aviation industry, during a time when COVID was going on, they took like, their exits and they got these great, golden parachutes
Packages. Yeah.
and packages, and trying to get them to come back. Like you're not going to get these people to come back. So the folks who are coming back, they're going to be more so like, look, I need A, B, and C for you to see me be able to produce just as much as I was
Mm-hmm.
before, or now producing for 2 people or 3 people. And I think with medicine, I don't know. I think that we're still the last bastion to do that. And I think you'll see less doctors talk about it because I think there's some perceived notions about a doctor who sets their boundaries that I think
Mm-hmm.
they're not prepared to find out what the consequences are, either from their patients or from fellow
Their
doctors
colleagues.
and colleagues.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It goes back to what you said before, right? When you, spoke at GPSF and you had someone ask a question, about locums, or, saying to an attending that, that they wanted to do X, Y, and Z. And there's kind of this backlash like, what's wrong with you? Like you
yeah,
should be basically you should be walking through the coals every single time, every single day, every single hour of every single minute. And it's just like, or every single minute of every single hour.
yeah. It's like what we
And it's
saw. It was
like,
like when we watched
I can't
Blackish.
do that.
When we watched Blackish, and
Right, right,
and
right.
Rainbow
First,
was
I think it was
Rainbow
called
was
First
show,
Traps.
Rainbow was talking about and showing some med students about her lifestyle and the things that she had to go through to get to like this great position of being, I think she was like an associate.
Diversity officer
Yeah.
or
And I think she was
something.
medical
And
director, actually, assistant
okay.
medical director. And she was very proud of it. But then as she's telling
Oh
these
yes,
medical
yes, yes. It was
students
right.
and these prospective students about how she got to this point, she found out that there was a lot of toxic culture that she had to navigate through. And she looks at it almost like, yeah, this is the trophy of all the things that I had to go through. And these students are like, I ain't going through that. Like, I don't want to put up
Right.
with that. Like, who wants to put up with this type of behavior? Right. And
Mm-hmm.
then the same thing equally happened with Dre when he was talking with a prospective candidate, and he was kind of letting this candidate know, like, yeah, I had to go through this and that. And this is how I
Mm-hmm.
work now, but I love it. And that candidate was like, yeah, I don't want that, you know? And I
Right.
think that a lot of times, what you're hearing from maybe you're attending, or maybe you're hearing from someone that you're getting advice in medicine, is basically you have to go through what I went through, not because of any reason outside of I went through
I
garbage,
went through it.
so you have to go through it. And that's what makes you a good X, Y, and Z. And I think
Right.
a lot of the newer docs or a lot of the newer people are like, the heck with that. I don't want to deal with that.
Right. I
And
don't
I'm
want
going
to
to
do
put
that.
this. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it goes a long way to talk about paving the way, right? Like, oh, but I paved the way. It's like, well, what exactly does that mean to people? Right? Because if you talking about you paved the way, did you pave the way for me to go exactly to then have to repave the way. Like, what does that mean? Because if you pave the way, that means where there was, dirt, rubble, grass, all kinds of things, you made smoother. Now that I've decided that I want it to be smoother, you want me to go through the grass, the rubble, the dirt. And it's like, but you paved the way. So, yeah, I definitely feel what you're saying. A lot of times in medicine, other industries as well, you'll hear, oh, well, you guys got it easy. And it's like, yeah, but I thought you were paving the way.
Well, but that's the
You
issue,
paving the way
right?
or not?
But that's the same thing with the student loan thing, right? It's like, yeah, you're
Right.
taking care of debt, but in the next year and the year after that, you still haven't fixed the systemic issue. So it's the same thing in this situation with quiet quitting, is that, you feel like there are significant compromises that you have to make for your career, sacrificing of maybe a lot of personal life, sacrificing your health, sacrificing your mental health to some extent. And that just, it feels like it's par, and everybody has to go through that until you have someone who says, yeah, I don't want to deal with
I
this
don't want to do
anymore.
that.
And then it's like, well, should we be jumping behind this person and say, yeah, we don't want to have to deal with this? Or should we say, there's something wrong with you, and go from there? And that's kind of the sentiment is anytime there's a change, then it's like, instead of looking at it as a positive change, there's a significant amount of questioning, a significant amount of possibly shaming and berating. So basically, for all you docs out there, for you med students out there, just know that it is okay to put your decisions and your career decisions at the center of everything that you do at this moment, right? Because ultimately what this show's about, and even when I talk to other, when I have students who I mentor or residents, I say, look, the ultimate flex really is, yes, it's great to have a great career, but you really want an amazing life. Right. And that's the way you have to look at it. I look at it as, how dope of a life can you have? Medicine is just one aspect of it. And I oftentimes say, look, when you finish medical school, you're going to have keys to a Maserati. The question is who's going to drive it, right? Are you going to drive it, or are you going to let your attendings drive, or are you going to let them be in the passenger side telling you, make that left turn, make that right turn, don't drive over 60 miles per hour? And you're going to be like, well, I got a Maserati. Right? I got this great career that I can take anywhere. Like, you guys have seen multiple people who we've featured on the show who've been able to go left, right, 200 miles per hour, 50 miles per hour. And it's like completely amazing. So the question is are you going to drive this car with your attendings in the passenger side telling you what you can and can't do? Or are you just going to kick them out and just do what you want to do? Right? Whip it, right? Like this. Whip it. Right?
Whip it good.
Whip it good, right? So
whip
for
it,
me,
baby.
that's what I'm like. I use the Maserati. Right. I use the Maserati thing. So
whip it all night.
Yeah. So
I definitely feel that. And I was getting some dreams and drive. Shout out to Renée. I was getting some dreams and drive vibes from that analogy. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And I just think that it's about time that people stop hating and start realizing that, sometimes the fruits of your labor you don't know what the fruits of your labor is going to look like until it literally just smacks you in the face. But what that might look like is, you not necessarily being able to reap the benefits that other people coming behind you are able to reap. And so again, if you consider yourself a trailblazer, if you consider yourself, someone who is paving the way for others, be prepared that you are not going to benefit from the things that they benefit from. That's why you were paving the way.
And support them when they decide, and to support them when they take that fork in the road and go left when you went right. So
yeah.
So listen everyone, we had a really good discussion here. We talked about President Biden announcing student loan relief. Listen, for you med students and residents out there, particularly the residents, get out there, get that 10K taken off your student loans, as well as possibly even your 20K taken off. Go get that money. Don't feel bad about that. Who cares about what other people say? I wish it was 30. I wish it was 40. I wish it was even more than that. But listen, hey, you can't let perfection get in the way. And then I will put the link in the show notes to studentaid.gov, where you guys should all click sign up to make sure that you get notifications for when this program goes live. You guys are first in line to get this. And then we talked about Tesla's full self-driving debate and how it's escalated with legal threats and banned videos, particularly with full self-driving possibly running over childlike mannequins. And then we also talked about me having, or the business getting, a Tesla. And we're going to talk about not only a review of the show, but once again, we're going to have Eric McLaughlin talk about how to have your business be able to purchase a car. Just more and more talking about how you can get a lot of your personal expenses shifted over into business expenses. And for someone like me who works 4.5 hours away, you know, it makes more sense for me to get a Tesla and also lower my tax burden. But we'll talk about that on a future episode. And then last but not least, we talked about quiet quitting, which we both agree is a misnomer. It's really more taking control of your life and your career and setting boundaries. So guys, this was a dope episode. Make sure you guys check out stjohnjobs.com. So that's stjohnjobs.com/DOCS to find out some dope job opportunities and some recruitment opportunities that you may not be privy to anywhere else. Right? You all heard about this through Docs Outside the Box. We're going to catch you guys on the next episode.
Peace.
Peace.
What kind of Millie Rock was that?